how did it come to meeting Issa Rae, and what was it like working with her and the misadventures of an awkward Black girl, and as well as Insecure and all the other works you've ended up being able to work on?
Um, yeah, so what's ironic is when I graduated AFI in 2012, a lot of the producing that I learned there was very hands-on. I'd like to think that I learned all of the skill sets of being a line producer, to be honest. And what I recognized was that every project, every set, pretty much anything with the budget always hires a line producer. There's always creative producers, but you always still need a line producer. You need someone who's going to run production. And I was good at that. I was good at what I learned at AFI. So why that matters is because when I was getting ready to graduate, and it was like, okay, now what? I recognized that there was a couple different paths of entry level positions and ways in, and you can go be an assistant, you can go work at an agency. That is very traditional. But for me, I was like, oh, I have this skill set as a line producer, as someone who can go produce things for other people. And at that time, if you think about 2011, 2012, digital exploded. There was all this money being pumped into the web in terms of all of these YouTube channels and all these new companies for the first time who were actually investing in digital content. And I was seeing a lot of my peers go and get hired in these freelance jobs to go make those. And so I was like, well, that sounds more exciting. And that actually, sounds like I'd be doing real producing work. This assistant route, not that I have an ego, but I think after maybe 12 internships, I was like, I don't really want to start there. This feels like a 20-year journey to become the producer I want to be. So why don't I'm only 24, so why don't I go take a couple years and continue to be broke, and just apply to some freelance jobs and go get more true work experience. And so that decision, as I'm, literally approaching AFI's graduation date, I just started applying to, I mean, everything from Craigslist to Mandy to you name it, but to these random like producer gigs, people that were like, music video, need a producer, send your resume. And so, you can imagine with these internships and with all of these additional job experiences through AFI and undergrad, I had production experience, so I was applying saying, here are the budget levels I'd worked in. And one of the jobs that I applied to happened to be it was a random email that was like a line producer for a hit web series. And I applied to that job and I got an email back from Issa Rae and that night. And she said, can you meet the next morning? And I met her and it turned out to be for Awkward Black Girl. I always joke and say I was living under a film school rock because I hadn't discovered the first season. I hadn't known really what was what was happening, but I did my homework. And when I showed up for the meeting, I was a huge fan within 24 hours, just being like, oh, wait a second, the content that you're doing, I just realized I haven't seen yet. I've been in school for 6 years and I'm not even doing content like this as a Black queer woman. Like this is crazy. I'm like, how are you doing this? So first of all, what's this job for? And it ended up being that she was looking for a producer to step in on Awkward Black Girl, the second season. She had already shot 3 or 4 episodes of that season. They had lost their producer and really needed someone to step in right away. So, I advocated for myself, and that night she emailed me and said, you got the job, can you start next week? And I jumped in headfirst into producing the rest of that season for her, and that began the start of a really, really wonderful partnership and relationship with her that has spawned 9 years now, which is wild. But the snapshot recoil of my career from there was, I spent 3.5 years as a freelance producer. So I would continue to work with Issa on a bunch of things. We did sketches and podcasts, you name it. She would call me and say, can we do this for $500? I'd be like, you bet we can. We're going to figure it out. And we really just had fun, growing together and just going and making stuff. And when I wasn't working with Issa, which is what I considered like my passion projects at the time, because I wasn't really getting paid for it, the way I was keeping the lights on was, still freelance producing, but in music videos and other digital content. I did a lot of shorts, so things that were actually paying the bills. And I did that for a few years, and up until 2015, when the Insecure pilot was greenlit, and it was Issa who made sure that the door was open for me to come join the pilot with her, and actually became the assistant on the Insecure pilot, which was very exciting, and a demotion in some ways, if you can look at it, but it was a demotion that I was gladly accepting because I was like, I'm not going to turn down this opportunity. And I was able to prove myself, where then when the show got picked up, there was no problem when Issa was like, I want Denise to be a producer on this. I had proven myself and everyone was like, hell yeah, she can be a producer. And so I've been a producer on the show ever since. I've worked my way up. I'm now a co-EP on this final season that we just wrapped. And, the second part to the story is Issa got an HBO deal in the first season, which allowed her for overhead for her company. And she turned around and offered me a full-time job and was like, do you want to stop freelancing? And I was like, yes. So I took the opportunity. And with that, we ended up developing and doing Black Lady Sketch Show. I've been able to help develop and sell a lot of projects, do a lot of different things with her. And then most recently, I've decided to step out on my own and launch my own company this year, which is both scary and exciting. But that's been my journey. And, there's a lot of little things in between there, but that just gives you guys a snapshot of where it all started. Because it's very surreal sometimes. I know it's not how it works for everyone, but I like to think that every single person who ends up in this town, in this industry, has their own journey. It truly is nothing alike for any one person in terms of how they make it in.